All right, I'm Ryan Brown, and this is the Unvarnished podcast, and I'm in Florence. Thankfully, in Florence, I love this city, and I get to talk today to Ramiro Sanchez, who's one of my main teachers when I was at the Florence Academy. So I think we met initially, way back in 2003 when I first started.
Probably, yeah.
And I think even then you were maybe the head of the painting or
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I don't think I had a lot of interaction with you at that point because I was only there 6 months in 2003, and then when I came back in 2007, I had a lot more interaction with
Yeah,
you.
you
at
had
that
the
point.
whole year with
Yeah.
our group, yeah, which was
Yeah,
great.
at
Yeah, it
least
was
a year
fun.
in Porto Romana.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think I owe you a lot. So
Oh dear,
it's
is
nice.
that good or bad?
No, it's good. It's very good. I mean, I think it's good. But yeah, I'm. What I didn't feel like I was able to do when I was here as a student was really like do a deep dive into you as a person, because I had my family. I was, at the school quite a bit, like most students are, but then I would run right home to the family. So I didn't necessarily always hang out at the bar after the lectures, sometimes, but I didn't have that many people where I was really able to like go visit their homes or get involved, on a personal level with them quite as much. It was more just what, interaction at the school. Excuse me. So I would love to hear just anything you want to tell me about your journey. You're from Venezuela.
Yeah.
And I remember in 2007, we had there were 5 Mormon students here, and then there was a bunch of Venezuelan students,
Yeah.
and they called us the Mormon Mafia, and we called them the Mexican Mafia.
Really? Okay.
Mostly me and Jesus. It was mostly me and Jesus razzing each other.
Jesus is a nice guy.
I love Jesus.
He still is.
Yeah, I love
I
him.
told you I was gonna hit this.
But anything you want to talk about like where you came from and how you found your way to Florence and how you got involved with the school, your role with them.
Yeah.
Anything. I'd love to know more about that.
So, hi everybody. And thank you, Ryan, for having me here. It's fun. It's fun to talk to you after so long, actually, and
Yeah.
our lives are so different. As you were just saying, you had a very young family. I think your kids were what, 1, 2
I had
years old?
3. The second time I was here, I had 3 kids, and they were all between 2 and 5.
Exactly. And I didn't have kids. As you left, I had my first child, just about. And just a little parenthesis, then I answer your question. I remember when I had my first son, Raphael, student at the Florence Academy told me, Ryan told me the trick of how to take care of the kids in the evening. So he told me, you need to bath them at this time and do this and do that, and then they will be ready to go to bed so you can sleep, and then you can work and teach and paint.
Yeah.
And I did that. So
Yeah.
your wisdom was passed. and it worked perfectly, actually. So just a little
Nice.
parenthesis of how, after you left, you still had, let's say, an input into
Nice.
everybody's life, at least mine and my son.
Happy to help.
That's fun. So I was born in Venezuela, in Maracaibo especially, particularly, specifically. And I went to school that was based on the arts. So it was a school that it was a choir. So I was singing. I was a child singer all my life, and this choir had an institution around it. And then this institution, grammar school basically, all the way to high school, eventually had also a church and a stadium and a TV channel and a radio station.
Wow.
And it became really, really big. It still is. It's still going on. In fact, the newer generation just came to Rome a couple of Christmas ago and did a Puerto Cantori.
Wow.
So that's how I grew up. So I grew up singing, reading music.
Was it
singing arts.
a Catholic school? Was it like a
It
religious?
was a Catholic
Okay.
school. Yeah, it was created by Monsignor Gustavo Cando Yamarte, a wonderful man who obviously changed the life of many people.
Yeah.
Most of us came from a very humble background. That was kind of the premises of the school. So everybody was the same in that sense. And the academics were very high. The level was quite high. And so, you could put it down in a way that I had the most severe education that you could ever have, basically. That's how I grew up. And through them, I was Monsignor Gustavo Cando, who eventually seeing that I was very much into the arts and painting. So I met my first painting teacher when I was 13 years old.
Wow.
And he was doing cartoons and transfer drawings for wood carvings, mosaics, and stained glasses. And I met him, and I remember walking to his studios, roughly about this size, and he had, cartoons like the ones I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I've never seen something like it. And, at the time I've been singing in the choir for many years, and I was playing viola in the orchestra. So I was involved in the arts. I was involved in singing, choir, orchestra, things, touring. But when I saw color and even just charcoal on paper and this three-dimensional idea of something that was flat, it just mesmerized me and changed my life. So Abdon, that's his name, Abdon Romero, basically took me under his wing, and I stayed with him until I was 19. When I was 19, Monsignor Cando, founder and director of the Niños Cantores, gave me the opportunity to come to Florence. So he said, I can buy you a plane ticket, maybe I give you $1,000, and would you feel like going? Like, sure. And that's all I had. So that's how I...
And why Florence?
So he said, well, where would you like to go? And I thought, because language and all of that, I thought, well, maybe Madrid. But then when I look into it, they didn't have an academic school that I could study at. I thought the Bellas Artes, the faculty was just too modern, like everywhere else.
Sure.
And then, looking more into it, I thought, well, at least the Accademia de Belle Arti, that's where I came to study at the state school, and I graduated from it in Florence. Florence is more Renaissance, at least the city is more classical. And then when I arrived, then I met a student of the Florence Academy.
Okay.
And he saw what I was trying to do.
What year was that?
1993.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
Super early.
And he saw what I was trying to do and said, oh, you will love my school. So one evening I came to the open drawings, to the evening drawings. And it was that kind of, deja vu thing that I walked in the Florence Academy, very small room. I think there were 5 students back then.
Wow.
And everybody was working on a cast drawing. Charles Weed was working on a still life. And I thought, wow, I mean, these places like this exist.
Yeah.
And it's like you just found, a unicorn or something like that.
Yeah.
And so that was it. I decided to do that. So they
Did you
took
have
me
a
in.
lot of exposure to classical art? Because it sounds like maybe the artist that you worked with from 13 to 19 was maybe doing more religious. Was it like religious iconography, or did it have more of a classical bend? Like where did your introduction to Caravaggio or up to Velázquez to Sargent to all of these artists, where did that begin?
Yeah. So when I first met him, he was not doing, let's say, sacred art. He was just doing his paintings and exhibitions, and mostly portrait commissions, to be honest.
Okay, so it was highly representational, with like a naturalist bend.
Yeah, and he studied in Barcelona for a little bit, and he had many books. So in his house, I was 13, 14, 15. He showed me the first Sargent catalog, Sorolla's, Goya's, Velázquez. Velázquez. It was all Velázquez.
Yeah,
and still today, to be honest.
Yeah.
It was only when I got here that Van Dyck and Rubens was more introduced into my palette, let's say. It was very Spanish, and I also had the fortune to meet Don Pablo Sansegundo Castañeda. He was a Spanish painter. So I was 14, 15. Abdon was roughly 10 years older than me. And Sansegundo was at least 20 years older than Abdon, probably more. He died already, but he was a student of Chicharro in Madrid. That's what I was thinking about Madrid in the beginning. And Chicharro was a student of Sorolla.
Wow.
So this guy was talking, I remember what Chicharro said about this, about Sorolla, and blah, blah, blah. And he had drawings and sketches. And so it was a direct link to something.
Amazing.
I was like, wow. So that was put into my, in my palette, my taste of art and how I perceived art. So let's say in Venezuela, I learned to love the idea of becoming an artist. I learned that that's what I wanted to be. And in Florence, Italy, at the academia, but most of the Florence Academy, and all I studied also with some students of Anigoni, and we can talk about that later. Then here, I always say I learned how to do what, learn that I wanted to do it, but here I really learned how to do it, how to perform it.
So when you first walked into the Florence Academy and there's 5 students, there was a recognition to what they were doing. It wasn't like you'd seen it, this is the first time you'd seen it, but like you had some exposure to that kind of art before.
Yeah. So for example, that's a good idea. So I did, we do the bark drawings. I did some copies of, reproductions, sort of like bark drawings, but they were kind of Spanish, roughly about the same time. And the bark drawings are more academic. The ones I did were just a little bit less academic, but basically they were the same. So when I was introduced to a bark drawing, I realized, I know what this means, and I understand it and why I'm supposed to do it. Same idea. So also he made me draw for 2 years, and then he gave me a limited palette. And then slowly he showed me, okay, this is your limited palette, or let's say your main palette. Then you have, I call it colorini, little colors that you can add if you need something else. Same idea here, right? So he always talked about temperature. So everything here was more specific, better structure, obviously. It was an academy. But yeah, I mean, and then obviously the many things that I didn't know, of course.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I first came here, I think I got in pretty naively. I knew I needed more than I got at the university, but when I came, I had no idea what academic training was. I don't think I even knew who Sargent was or really like anything about the 19th century training methods. So they put a barg in front of me, and my first day, nobody told me anything about site size because I came in January, so I think I missed the initial orientation. And they said, draw this. And I was like, what the hell is this?
You're looking at mammoth.
Yeah.
What am I going to do with it?
I finished my first barg in an hour and a half, I thought. And they came in and just like, looked at me like, what are you doing? They told me to start over. And I was like, start over what? This is good. This is really good. And then it took me like 3 days. By the 3rd day, I remember going home to my wife and I was like, we're getting the fuck out of here. I hate this place. I don't know like what they want. And then I asked the question audibly. I said to her, like, what do they want it to be perfect? And it just hit me as I said it. I was like, oh, this is a higher standard. This is something different. And I went immediately from I hate this to this is going to change my life. And by day 4, I was all in. But it was, for me, it was like an initial shock of just, I just had no idea what it was or what to expect. And then once I kind of got a glimpse into it and the potential, I actually had to ask myself initially, do I want to go down that path? Because I knew if I said I do want to go down this path, it was going to require more effort, more discipline, more just hyper focus than I'd put into anything in my life. And I didn't know if I wanted to do that. I wondered if I was going to lose some of the fun of drawing and painting by making it so serious. That didn't last for more than 10 minutes when I was like, no, I have to do this. If I can get any good at this, I have to like be willing to give my best effort. So it's interesting because when you came and saw that for the first time, I don't know if I would have had the same recognition that you had when you saw it. I don't know. I was kind of blind to it at first. I recognize the language. But it's interesting. I remember when you eventually came back, I guess the second time, and you were my student, I remember you working and creating landscapes from memory. Yeah. At a level that I thought, they're very good. They're very, very poetic. They're very unified. They're very, not simple. That's not the word. They were not overdone. Yeah. And they were very, very nice. So you obviously had a lot. I thought you had studied a lot. Because by the time you arrived to the 3rd year, you were speaking the language, you knew exactly what to do, and you were doing this memory painting. So, invented it. I thought, wow, this guy's really good. Yeah, I think I was just, I fell into that naively. I just wanted to prove, like I was doing some plein air stuff. And then I just wanted to start to prove what I knew, what I could remember. And so I started doing invented stuff, and it just kind of snowballed, and I kept doing it. And
Nice.
now it's like probably 80% of what I paint is, even if I'm using a reference, I'll, maybe use it for 20 minutes and then put it away for 3 hours and just paint from
inside out.
Yeah,
Definitely. I think that, and that's a good point. Like many students, even a third year, so now so well structured. No. When I arrived, even when you were here, it was a lot better structured compared to how I studied at France Academy. So they get to a third year and they're like, but I don't know if they're fully committed. It's not that, but it's like, I don't know if I want to give up completely. Like, I'm afraid I'm going to lose what I already knew, or myself, or my own voice, or you can title it whatever you think it is. But that's the idea. And I said, not at all. I mean, you're just expanding your vocabulary.
Yeah.
That's all you're doing. So you have more wording and more possibilities of rearranging a phrase. That's all you're doing.
Yeah.
And I guess when you're young, you don't see it like that. It's hard to get yourself outside and see the world from outside. You only see it from your own eyes, and you have one perspective. It's hard to create a bigger perspective when you're that young. But it's true. I mean, never be afraid of being exposed.
Yeah.
Even an influence, if you want to put it that way, because that would be the negative connotation, right?
Yeah.
You can just understand it, feel it. Okay, this feels like that, and then make choices.
Yeah.
Because if you're not exposed, then you have no choice.
Right.
It's worse. It's even worse. It's even more limiting.
Yeah. I think it's easy to, I know there's a big, especially in the academic world, there's a big kind of pushback against the use of photography. One of the reasons, I think, is because the people using photography tend to maybe have lesser developed drawing skills, or it ends up looking like the photograph, which really is a result of them trusting too much the reference and not thinking beyond it, or having the skills to work beyond it. Maybe they don't have the skills from life to understand how to move beyond the reference. But I found the same thing to be true when working from life. There's the potential for the same sort of slavish way of just copying what you see without thinking beyond it, without considering design or the emotion of what you're trying to capture, or the base, allowing the composition or concept to overwhelm the subject that you're looking at. And I think that whether your reference is from life or whether your reference is from photo or whatever, there's always the option of trusting too much what's in front of you instead of the concept you started with.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I 100% agree with you. I mean, in the sense that, as you're saying, I also have seen many, let's say, bad paintings, just to say clearly, painting from life, as many as I've seen badly painted from photos. So that doesn't change anything. As you can see beautiful paintings painting, let's say, from photo references or from life. That is not a point. The point that the painting is either good or bad.
Right.
And then technically, and then that's the basic of it. And then, okay, now what do you want to say about it?
Right.
I mean, I find more frustrating when paintings don't have a clear narrative, or a real emotion. That's too vague. Let's say a psychological or emotional, or how you say, direction, or narrative. What I'm completely left cold. Think whatever you want. What do you mean think whatever you want? You're supposed to move me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I that's the way I see art, no? Like I said to the students, we're all here for one reason. We want to move people's souls, and you can move them emotionally, psychologically, politically, whatever it is. Whatever it is you're into it, but you want to move them. And to do that, it takes everything you have and double it. And it's a little bit what you said, like, oh, they really want to do this seriously. Yeah. Because it takes everything you have and double it. And then you're at this level of thinking, then you finally at the level of saying, wow, okay, I think is the only way to work.
Yeah. Yeah, I think academically you get into the mindset of making this look like that. I mean, you have to start there. You have to learn how to see. But understanding why the post application of that to how do I, what is the psychological motivation? What is the emotional motivation? one way I talk about it is I want to see the purpose in a painting. I want to know that the artist was making this with a really deep purpose, and I want that to be apparent to me.
Yeah.
And when the purpose is just look how well I can render, which a lot of like recent graduates kind of hold on to, that their art is really just really good student work. It's just rendering what's in front of them. I think the thing that I tried to pass on to my students was there needs to be a deeper reason behind making a work of art beyond just look how well I can draw. And that's a difficult bridge for students to build, from the academy, because I think the academy is so focused on just the skill development, and there's often an absence of conversation among students about artistic choices or emotional motivations beyond the student work. So for me, I was selling in galleries when I came back, and so I was doing paintings on my own, and I felt like just compelled to try and pay for being here. I felt compelled to be working on my own stuff, but I was also more motivated to make my own paintings than I was to do another academic nude. I liked the academic nude. I didn't love the academic nude. I loved painting at home. And so I just assumed that everybody else was similarly motivated. But I was really surprised over the, I don't know how many years I've been teaching now, to find that the majority of students aren't necessarily going home and working on their own stuff. That the school, being told what to do and having these projects that they're working on, that was sort of filling their whole artistic life. And I feel like that is somewhat detrimental when a student in the academy only does the academy. I feel like there's not a natural bridge from learning how to draw well to making great art. And if you're not willing to go through like the clumsiness of going through your own ideas and figuring out how to solve problems on your own, that bridge isn't naturally built. It has to be built, and it takes 2 or 3 times as long to build that as it does to get good at drawing. Have you noticed that? You've been teaching a long time here. You've been involved, it seems like, from the very beginning. Is that something you guys talk about, or have you had any experience with seeing that with students?
I guess the easiest way I can put it is the academy, Florence Academy of any academy, can teach technique and the how-to, but you cannot really teach art. You cannot teach anybody to become an artist.
Yeah.
That is a self journey.
Yeah.
You have to do that for yourself. It would be short sight of me to try to impose on you a vision. Yeah. It would be a failure anyhow.
Sure.
And I don't want to do that. I don't want to impose anybody's vision, and definitely no mini-me. I was having a conversation today with a guy, and he said, "Why don't you hire some students? Why don't you hire some people and to make them work in your style so you get more commissions?" And
do like the underpaintings or...
Yeah, and I said to him, "I don't want any mini-me's.
Yeah.
It would be frustrating for them and for me."
Yeah.
And he looked at me like, "You're crazy. You don't understand business."
Right.
And I looked at him thinking, "You don't understand art."
Yeah.
So that's from one point. So the academy is supposed to teach you technique, and it's not supposed to teach you what you should paint.
Yeah.
Eventually, that is a self-research. That's why you read poetry. That's why you go to the cinema. That's why you go to concerts. That's why you sit alone. You take a long walk and sit under an olive tree for hours. I think that's the only way around it. Now, when you come back to the teacher and say, "Look, I've been sketching. I've been doing this. I've got tons of these ideas. Can you help me to direct this energy and this inspiration?" Yeah, then we can help again.
Right.
But
it requires that personal effort.
I think so.
And I guess the question is is that something that is common for you to see among students or uncommon? Because in my experience, it's uncommon. That people really thrive when they're told what to do, they don't, it's not a natural instinct for a lot of people to go home and just come up with an idea and go for it.
Okay, so I guess the point you could make here is everybody at one point has a sparkle in their lives, at whatever age, and they look at a book or whatever of Michelangelo, usually is the case, or Leonardo da Vinci, right? Mona Lisa or Michelangelo Sistine Chapel, and said, wow, I would love to do something like that. I mean, we all ended up here because of something like that, right? And I guess the point you could make is, can the academy, any academy, maintain that sparkle alive, lit up,
right,
while the students study?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess that you could make that point. In that sense, and only to that, the school is supposed to teach you technique.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the way I see it, and that's why people come. If you're gonna come to an art academy like Florence Academy, and you're gonna be experimenting and doing whatever you think is inspire you, you could do that at home.
Yeah.
You don't need to pay anybody to do that.
Yeah.
Instead, there are a lot of exercises, like I said, to improve your technique, to expand your vocabulary, so you start rephrasing. Like, I think this is the moment to do that.
Yeah.
How you keep that sparkle alive, that's something I think we could improve on and probably work more on it. The truth is that who really has it, don't lose it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you think as a young student, like, oh, no, I'm not going to go because then I'm going to lose my own voice. No, you won't. You're just going to make it stronger.
Right.
Because there's nothing more frustrating than, I would love to say this, but I don't know what word to use.
Yeah, not having the tools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more frustrating than non-studying.
Yeah.
And the honest truth is that, the amateur painter, for all the respect that they deserve and that they have and that I give them, unfortunately, had a very mediocre teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the truth.
Yeah.
So you get somebody that has been teaching for 20 years, that have done this, have many experiences. They're going to direct you faster to a point that you want to arrive. And they're like, thank you so much. Close the doors, open your like I said to my kids, open your mind and spread your wings. That's the idea. And just go, jump. Icarus, right? Just go.
Right.
Go beyond that you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
That's the idea, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could get a teacher that that tells you, come on, go, Icarus. That would be ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the journey is only yours.
Right.
Yeah. That's the way I see it.
So, how have you, because you've been teaching here so long, how have you retained that? Because your community, I would imagine, is largely within the academy. You have a constantly revolving group of students year after year. The teachers remain, pretty stable for a few years. There's a much slower turnover with the teachers, but with that community and the conversation that you must have so regularly by being a teacher and, talking about the same things, about turning form and creating weight and transitions, color harmonies, whatever. How have you been able to exist in this environment and still expand beyond it? What are the tools you use? Is it museums, travel? Do you have friends around the world that you converse with regularly, push ideas off of, that allows you to kind of have more expansive work?
Well, like I was saying before, it's not that hard in the sense that, at least right now for me, I really think I do too much. I need to slow down.
Yeah.
And I tell you what I do, but for everybody, I think reading is a way to live many lives. So every time you read a book, you're confronted with situations and life experiences that could be yours, that you can learn from.
Yeah.
Every book you read is like you just lived another life.
Yeah.
So that is something, So reading a lot keeps you, again, alive and spreading. And let's say, don't stay in such a close environment and inbreed of ideas.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, now talking about staying in a very close environment and don't having ideas. Beethoven, when he got deaf, he could not hear anything, literally. So he didn't hear all the progress and all the input and all the experimentation that his contemporaries were doing.
Yeah.
He wasn't exposed to any of that.
Right.
So all he had was his head and his
Yeah.
feelings. And he went way beyond than anybody else, right?
Yeah.
And wrote amazing, most of the main compositions were after he got deaf. So that's very interesting, Being
Yeah.
out there in the world and meeting everybody is not necessarily very, creative, way of, being more creative.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's quite the opposite.
Right. Right.
So that's what I'm saying. Reading, taking a long walk, sit under a tree. I'm not saying being deaf, but being just within yourself.
Yeah.
You may find more than just looking around. And today we just looking.
Yeah.
We this pollution of images. I don't know if it's better. Okay, I'm not saying.
Interesting. Yeah.
So this is a good point. And then the other thing is that in my personal case, I my wife Melissa, she's a painter, so that's that. So we converse and obviously talk a lot about our own work.
Argue about who's better.
She's definitely my favorite painter that I ever known. When I ask, who's your favorite painter? My wife, Melissa.
Nice.
Yeah. So there's no, Vitals lost there already. So that's that. And then I got a family, I got children, I got two children, I got a boy and a girl. And they do a lot, they do piano, they do violin, so I help them with that. I do chamber music, I play in 2 orchestras.
Wow.
So,
you do a lot.
I do a lot. So, I'm at the moment I'm decorating a church. I'm doing a big historical painting for a London commission, and I'm doing another painting for a New Jersey company. Plus, I'm trying to paint a self-portrait because I have this idea, but I don't have to paint. I don't have time to paint that. So, there's a lot going on. So that's not a problem right now.
Right.
I've never really been. So let's say when I've been the least occupied by mundane things like wife and children and cars and whatever, I'm paying rent, I listened to a lot of music and read a lot of books and went to a theater and listened to Wagner, let's say.
Yeah.
I did that a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to do that, but you can find things like that.
But this is where you kind of find inspiration and allow your mind to expand beyond your immediate surroundings.
And I think silence and solitude is necessary.
Yeah.
Okay, so to be bored is essential. You have to be bored.
Yeah.
You have to find yourself so bored that you have to be creative to survive.
Yeah.
If you're busy all the time, you're not going to be creative. You're just going to keep moving whatever machinery you don't understand you're part of.
Yeah.
Like those little mouse on the thing, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting, observation with now, I have kids that have grown up with iPads. And as a parent with, we had 5 kids, so at some point you're like, I just got to get stuff done. It's so easy to just give them an iPhone or iPad and say, just be quiet for 20 minutes, Yeah. But it does, I think I've seen a net negative on creativity because it occupies your mind constantly with ever-changing 30-second video after 30-second video, and it's so mind-numbingly stupid, but it's so captivating that there's really no downtime like we had when we were kids, right? We played outside, I'm sure you were similar, just for hours.
A young kid with no scratched knees is a sad kid.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. I think kids need to be exposed to everything that is healthy and could open their mind, right? So they need to be busy being exposed. And then we are our age, I think we need to trying to fight to be bored. Yeah. To find boredness in our life. Because we, like I was saying before, you get so used to be busy, like I am, like we all are. But they just sit down and they're like, okay, what am I going to do now? Oh, I'm going to think.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. I read this quote that I love. It's in a Louis L'Amour book. It was, I can't remember the full quote, but it was talking about pioneers coming across and the difficulty of that lifestyle where the entire day was typically taken up with just finding sustenance, right? Finding food or cutting wood or, building, another barn or mending a fence, or I mean, it talked about the downtime being so sacred because there was so little of it, and the luxury of leisure was spent on the best books, the best, it was time to think, to dream, to create. That was the final end of the quote, was our leisure was bought with hardship, and we needed leisure to think, to dream, to create. And I just love that because we don't live in a time anymore where leisure is sacred. We have so much of it. We have such an abundance of leisure that we've lost the value of it.
Yes, completely. Yeah. Yeah, I agree, 100%. Yeah, leisure now is just pure basic entertainment of the lowest level.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, rather than being the very only moment that I'm going to make my soul grow out of my body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
We'll find an equilibrium. I'm sure of that. I have a big trust on humanity.
Yeah. So, being at the academy, I guess you've lived here since 93?
Yeah.
You never left?
Never left. Try to, but haven't been able to. Still trying.
Really?
Yeah, all the time.
What?
Every morning I wake up and like, when am I need to get out of here.
Get out of Florence?
Get out of Florence in general, yeah.
And why is that?
Well, I was not born here, although I've
Yeah.
been here most of my life, and my kids were born here. They're definitely Fiorentini, and to speak with the accent, the whole jazz. I don't know. It's this idea of, I guess, I have this romantic idea of the wanderer, right? If you feel at home and you feel, that you have arrived, you're mediocre.
Yeah, interesting.
So I always have this idea, at least in spirit, that I could just take a backpack, let's put it like that, and a book under my arm, and I don't know, violin, play the viola, or fold of papers on a charcoal, and that's all I need, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you can say, well, Ramiro, that's very romantic and unrealistic. Yeah, but at least keeps your soul, at least my soul, alive and healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that.
So it's not necessarily like I wish I lived in New York or.
Oh no, I don't. No.
I'd love to.
No, I live in the countryside. We spend the weekends planting fruit trees, collecting olives. Like I said before, I was supposed to do that today. In fact, I have my shoes for collecting olives. Planting trees, taking care of the roses, taking care of the lemon trees. Doing that I love that. That's, it gives me a lot of inspiration. I think it's very inspiring. It's very work artistic. Go back hand by hand. We I got home yesterday with the kids, and I thought found Melissa. I thought Melissa would be sitting just waiting for us. So, start the evening, which is cooking, getting ready. You have a family. She was painting, like the moon was rising, and she's just gonna go work.
Yeah.
And you can do that only where places like we live at.
Yeah.
So that's great. Yeah. So it helps. You think you're gonna find the most inspiration, the most work. Well, for some people, yes, maybe living in New York City or London. We find that just living in the countryside. Yeah. Yeah. So you find what you want. I don't think there's a recipe for success. Like there is no recipe to make somebody an artist. That's why you cannot teach art. Like I hesitate to teach color, for example, because I find it so individual, so personal. Yeah. I mean, the way that yellow or blue tastes and feels, and is yellow warm or cold? No, I mean, in like temperature in terms of like. Is it ice or hot water? Right. It's so personal. Yeah. And if you say to somebody, no, yellow is supposed to be like hot water. I mean, burning will burn your tongue. It's so unfair. Just let them just have their own. Yeah. Now you can say something is too wide, too thin, or too tall, or one needs a little bit more weight. That you can do. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think there's a recipe for everybody. Yeah.
But you find the pace of life seems like Florence. One of the things my wife and I talk about, because we've been talking about moving somewhere for a long time. We're still not sure where.
Oh, that's why you were interested.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm interested in terms of how your surroundings affect, your art, the inspiration that you find, there's always struggles, there's always obstacles, no matter where you live. There's community, there's one of the things I've never really had, other than the time I lived here, was access to great museums. And so one of the things I really kind of feel like I'm missing as part of my artistic development is being able to visit these museums with regularity. And so that's kind of, it feels like a little missing piece in my journey that makes me want to move somewhere else. But also we talk about the pace of life in America, the diet in America, there's certain things that we feel like are really unhealthy, that we're kind of getting tired of. And so we've talked about moving back to Europe somewhere. And I think one of the things that's difficult is like adjusting my pace of life. In America, it just feels like I'm constantly feeling the anxiety of going and going and doing and doing and doing. And here it feels more, I just feel more at peace. I feel more like I can get the same amount of work done. I just have my anxiety levels are lower.
I feel that the Mediterranean Sea bathes the most human living possible places.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the way I feel it. So if it's not Italy, it's going to be Spain. If it's not Spain, it's going to be Portugal, France. I mean, I just see the Mediterranean Sea, for whatever reason, is the area that humans were meant to
Yeah.
live and thrive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the city itself, or the countryside surrounding, really is conducive to your pace of life and your inspiration. And how else has the city, living in Florence, the history, affected your way of thinking or your approach to art? What do you get from the city?
Oh, a lot. I tell you a story. So about 10 years ago, I went to an opening of some American school. There's many programs, right? These were young kids. Art show, exhibition, Christmas show, something like that. Nothing too, just nice. I don't know how I got invited. I ended up going.
Yeah.
And this very famous art historian was invited, was kind enough to accept it and kind of do an opening, to talk about it and just for the inauguration. It was very nice. The whole thing was very nice. He said, and I respect this man a lot, he said, he's talking about it and said, because Florence is the capital of contemporary art. And I thought, no, that's wrong. Florence is the capital of Renaissance art. So later on, we had dinner, so I confronted him with that and said, no, you're wrong. Florence is the capital of contemporary art. I said it in purpose, and I said, okay, explain that to me. And he said, every artist after Masaccio have come to Florence in every moment, even today, and looked at the churches and looked at the piazzas and looked at the fresco, let's say, Del Sarto in Santissima Annunziata. And it's true, Ankh copied them, Moreau copied them, Degas copied them. Ribera found his way of paint. Ribera went to Santissima Annunziata, so the Sarto frescoes, and said, public art, big, that everybody can see. Boom, Mexican muralism.
Yeah.
So Florence is the capital where every contemporary artist is going to make something, comes to, learns, and starts doing it. It's true, it's always been.
Yeah.
So that's Florence, and just to put it in that way.
Yeah. Was this Gerald Ackerman?
No. Gerald was very nice. This is John Spike.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Florence has that. You think like, it's just all stones and only Renaissance art. No, it's the art school of the world. Always been, always will be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's alive.
In the same way that the Greeks were the art school for the world up to the Renaissance, through the Romans and. Yeah, that's interesting because when I first landed here, I'd just come from Paris. Paris feels, it's much larger. The art that I love, the 19th century, is everywhere. Petit Palais and Musée d'Orsay, and a little bit, later in the Louvre. But when I landed here, I had this feeling like this is just an ancient city, and this is my ancient past. I felt very much like this is in my rear view. I don't see myself here anymore. I don't, like, this was so long ago for me. Because everywhere I go, I'm thinking, could I live here? And it took about 4 or 5 days, and now it's like, yeah, I get it. I get it again. I remember there's never been any time in my life where I've been so constantly inspired as living in Florence, because even just the bike ride to school every day, which got really boring and not really boring, but hard. It was like an hour bike ride each way. You get there and drenched in sweat and whatever. As hard as that was, I was never bored. There was always like a little, plant growing out of the side of a, building, or there was always some arch I hadn't seen before, or, the broken streets, and just that it oozes history. And it just always felt like how many people have walked to these streets, how many minds have like been inspired by the similar sites. And I forget what that constant feeding is like, because when I get home, it slowly fades. And then I get used to just living in the West, where all the buildings are new. We have a pretty landscape. I live at the edge of the mountains, but in terms of like architectural beauty or history, it just doesn't exist. And I forget how important that it has been to me in the past. And so again, like I call my wife from here, I'm like, okay, what decisions are we making in our life that can lead us as soon as possible, to being in a place like this again?
Yeah, well, Florence definitely, as you're saying, has an abundance of artistic input to any artist, for sure. Writer, dancer, painter, architect, and it's true. So there is a painting by Frangelico, so very early Renaissance, and he's painting Divina Conversazione, which is basically Virgin Mary talking to saints. Make it very simple. And the idea is, it says, what could be that's an image of paradise, right? That's an image of paradise. And then on the bottom of that, there is another idea of paradise, and is the frame, not the frame, but the bottom of the painting has 3 panels that could be any abstract expressionist from the 1930s, literally. Yeah. And it's painted by Frangelico. So that's what I'm saying, is there's everything. Yeah. If you're really looking, and there will be a moment in your life that you're ready for it, because that's the other thing. You could be in the most exposure situation that you could ever be artistically, but if you're not ready, you're not going to get anything. Yeah. So you have to be ready in many ways, and then you have to be in the right place. You will see it. Yeah. You will see it. And it's true. It's true. For Florence has that. And that's another point. It's not just where you go, but where you are as a person. Yeah. And how open and ready you are to allow the city to move you, to influence you in that way. Or anybody. Yeah. Or anybody, even a student or your wife or your children, That's another thing. Many times artists are too self-conscious and too self-concerned, and I only know how to do this, and we just talk too much and we impose too much ourselves into the canvas, for sure. We just say it all the time. It's like, to back up, or just back up and let the painting paint himself. Yeah. Yeah. So that's the difference. When you work of art, I was reading the thing about Jung the other day, and I was mentioning to my students on Monday. It was very well said. He said, a good artist do not make a painting. A good artist is not a lecturer. So if you make a painting or a sculpture or a work of art that feels like a lecture, like, look at this is the way things work. He said that's not true art. Yeah. Because true art is questioning, adding questions and relationships to the world rather than a lecture to the world. So that's another thing. So I think many times when we try to paint, like, oh, look, I can draw, I can do this, I can paint like whatever, like God, and we tend to lecture all the time. At least you see that a lot, and I think that we have to fight that, especially today, where with all the technology we can get to be so specific in one. And I think throwing questions and throwing relationships and throwing communicate, ideas to the world and answer questions is probably more interesting, more artistic than now. We forget about that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially in the realistic realm. Obviously, in abstract painting, it's a lot easier now because everybody thinks, "Oh, what is that?" And that's good. You know, how many times have you heard like, "Oh, I don't want people to think, oh, what is that?" You know, good art says exactly what it is. Not necessarily.
Yeah.
You get somebody saying, "Wow, what is that?" That's good. You know.
Yeah.
And allow them to find an answer. If the whole thing is what is that as a mimic of like, I got you, you're never gonna figure it out, then that's not the point. That's the opposite.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the city itself is relevant to living artists as a source of inspiration, as a source of history, a source of your place in time, your sort of adoption into a tradition. How does the art that we're making today, especially coming through the academy, that tends to be far more, whatever word you want to use, classical, natural,
Academic.
Academic.
Yeah.
How there's no answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How do we find a way to not only do things that are inspired by the past through this historical tradition, but do them in a way that finds relevance in a world that has so many other distractions beyond still frame paintings or sculpture?
Okay, so you could have this idea of the artificial intelligence too, right? It's very close to that question. What else can I throw out there that cannot be reproduced, for example?
Yeah.
It's very similar question. You could ask the same. I've obviously been thinking a lot about that, and I had a couple of conversations with a few colleagues of mine, and we had this conversation and went home and was thinking about it. And it's a long story. I'm going to make it very short, but I think as humans, we will never get bored of somebody else's excitement. You could be excited for many reasons because you have a big question or a big answer or a big pain or a big joy. And when that excitement, I'm just calling it like that, you could call it whatever you want, joy, pain, and question or answer or tribute is so pure and so purely exposed and placed into clay, marble, paint, whatever it is, glass, every other human figure, person, being will be impressed by it, will be felt and attracted to it. And that, to me, is the only safe way to make art today. Be truthful to yourself and be truthful to your feelings and truthful to your ideas, to your questioning, to your feelings, and truthfully and purely put them down the best you can, and people will stop to look at it because that's all people want. People want connection with another human being, and art probably is the best way to connect to another human being. So you cannot be a realistic painter or sculptor and hate people. It's like the opposite of it, right?
Yeah.
It's impossible. You cannot be I believe that, truthful, realistic painter and don't talk to nobody ever.
Yeah.
It's impossible. You have to love yourself first and make yourself happy, or try to, so you can love and try to make happy somebody else, and then hopefully humanity.
Yeah.
I think it's the only way around this. And when that's sincerely putting, this is like an art creator, no? Then, when you're a dad, when you're a worker, when you does something different, people will feel it. People will be attracted to it. Why people keep looking at Rembrandt's portraits? Because they see their own humanities on them.
Yeah.
Because that was the way he painted them.
Yeah.
He put his own humanity so much into these images, these portraits, and that people see he's like a mirror to people's souls.
Yeah.
And we will never stop being amazed by it.
I also feel like, and you can give me your opinion on this side of that, I feel like there's also something to be said about our recognition for human achievement. I think there's, sort of intuitively understand how difficult it is for Olympians to do what they do, even though maybe I'm not a track person or, excuse me, I've never swam before, or I don't know anything about skiing, but watching people do something at a really elite level, I think there's an intuitive connection that allows us to appreciate the dedication it takes for another human being to do something that's difficult. Mm-hmm. And I think great painting to me not only has the element that you're talking about, which is sort of an emotional, raw display of who a person is. I think there's also an element of connection that is relative to the obvious dedication it takes for somebody to create something like that. There's a human achievement aspect to it at least for myself, that I've always responded to. Great painting is just like I can't believe somebody could do that. Like watching, Michael Jordan dunk a basketball or something. It's just like, I can't believe somebody's capable of that. And then I get into the story behind it and really connect with it on a different level. But for me, it was always sort of like just the similar amazement as I feel when I watch sports. That might just be because I have a sports background.
No, I know. But, when you see somebody running really, really fast and winning the 100 meters, right? Really fast. The whole point, though, is to make it look easy.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what it makes so... The same with art. I mean, you can see a very complex painting by... everybody thinks about their favorite artist, right? I'm going to say the Sixtine Chapel ceiling. Very complex. The whole point is that it's amazing because it looks like, wow, okay, I cannot believe a human person did it. But it doesn't look like the guy struggled, no? You don't see scratches, you don't see paint throwing or whatever it is. You don't see the armature. It's there.
Yeah.
It was always there.
Right.
It's like you woke up from this dream like, oh, wow, yeah, I didn't dream it. It's actually there.
Yeah.
The whole, you're impressed is because they make it look so easy. And yes, you need technique to do that.
Yeah.
But the idea of technique is to be the trampoline so you could express yourself, because if technique goes in front of expression, is boring, it's sterile.
Right.
And then you see all the struggle. So let's say the king with no clothes.
Yeah.
Right? So the king with no clothes can afford to don't have clothes because he's king. He doesn't need to wear anything. I am king. So it's the same idea. The beautiful work of art is naked because it's simply beautiful. If you see all the struggle and trying to put, crowns and jewelry and thing to be the king, and I can barely stand up because I have too much gold on me, people make fun of you.
Yeah,
You're not king anymore.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it. So to me, yes, obviously virtuosistic art is supposed to be like, oh my God, yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
And it is amazing. And it's all based on technique, but it's the fact that they make it look so
easy. Right. Yeah, there's such an easy entry into it. There's a recognition of how difficult it must have been, but there's no sense of that. There's no Michael Jordan, that's I grew up with him, so that's what they would always say, like, he makes it look so easy. That's the beauty of the game is.
Also in music, like, playing any string instrument is very, very hard and awkward. Mm-hmm. Not that others aren't, like horns. I know the wind instruments are just so hard to play. Mm-hmm. But let's, know better the string instruments. And the passages are so virtuosistic, so hard. And the great ones make it look just like the music is in the air. The sounds are on air.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not even the physicalities of the guys playing. It's just there. It's on air.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that to me is pure art.
Right.
Where you just instinct any more image from word, from existent, from the experience of it.
Yeah.
So you're just in the dream. No?
Yeah. Yeah.
In the logos, in the dream, in the logos, in the... Yeah, I think that's that. I think that's the ultimate idea, to me. If you go to a painting, we are painters, right? So we put our noses on paintings. So, okay, fine. But if you see a person that is not an artist, putting their nose into a painting is a bad painting. Because they figure out how it was done. And that's that you miss the point.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. So I want to check the time. I know you've got somewhere to be at some point.
Yeah.
Are we still good on time?
Yeah, we have like 10 more minutes.
Okay.
It's okay.
So maybe you could just tell me, what you're working on currently, and maybe where people can find you. I think that it's exciting for me to come here and talk to a few artists in Florence, because oftentimes people in the U.S. aren't quite as exposed to what's going on here, and there's so much going on here. So my hope is that I don't have a ton of followers here, but that more people will be able to kind of be exposed to what you do and the work you create. And I mean, especially your philosophy is so deep and beautiful to listen to. So I'm really happy we got to talk about that. But what are you working on currently, and where can people find you? Do you teach workshops? Do you have like social media, website?
Yeah, try to stay up with time. So, so I teach at the Florence Academy. I direct the advanced painting program. So the graduating group come through my faculty and I, and that's fun. That's great. I really love it. I love that every group, the new students, and everything we just talked today. Just try to put these things into them, and like I said to them, open your mind, spread your wings. Lock the door behind you, just go, like Icarus, just there, right? So I love that. It keeps me alive, it keeps me young in a way, and inspired. Everybody's different. So I love doing that. So I live in Florence, do that, live with my wife, Melissa, who's a painter, and then our two sons, Rafael and Iris. That's who I am. I grew up. I developed a career that every 2 years I would have a solo show at the Granning Gallery.
Okay.
And that's how I developed my career. That's how I developed my narrative, my ideas. So I would have exhibitions every 2 years, and I had a theme. Sometimes it was a poem. Sometimes it was a whole book. And based on that, I remember I did Baudelaire, Fleur de Mal. I did T.S. Eliot, Terra Desolata, The Wasteland, and so forth. Right. So. But then I started getting commissions. I got commissions because I put to myself years ago, I'm talking fast because we gotta go. I said, well, if the most painted image in our history is being the crucifixion of Christ, it's just the image that has been the most painted ever. What would I do? And I didn't want to do anything new, because it's not about doing anything new.
Yeah,
that's the wrong, I think, for me, approach. Everything is done. Everything has been done. Everything exists, and everything has been done. What can be new, if we want to use that word, or different, is how you can shine light in a way that people say, wow, I never saw it with that light. Mm-hmm. I've never seen it from that perspective. But everything exists. So I said, how can I shine a new light, or expose something that already exists to people, say, wow, look at it from here. Mm-hmm. So I tried to do that, and it was fairly successful. It was bought by the Muscarel Museum and William Mary College in Williamsburg, Virginia. So it's in the museum collection. And then from there, the Monsignor of the town was looking for an artist to decorate the church, and found it and saw it, and all of that through also other connections and friends who pointed him to my direction. Obviously, that's the way it works. So I've been for 8.5 years now decorating this church.
Wow.
In mosaics. So I do the cartoons that you see in here. I do the paintings, blown up the cartoons. I repaint the cartoons in neck tempera and put all the rhythms that I would like the Venetian glass mosaics to put and paste them.
Wow.
So we do all of that here in Pietrasanta. Then we ship the boxes. Each 34 panels. Each panel is about 2 boxes. It's about, I don't know how many boxes, but it's a lot of them. And then we go there and we install. So I've been doing that for 8.5 years. And then, like I said, I'm doing the historical commission for a company in London. And then I'm doing another one. So it's been about 9 years that I don't paint anything that I decided to paint.
Wow.
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah.
And I did the exact opposite to develop a career.
Yeah.
That's where I am right now. In the meantime, somebody said to me, listen, I created an Instagram account for you. here it is, because you need one. This is the password. Please don't make it die. So that's my biggest challenge in my life at the moment, to keep that account alive. Yeah, and that's what I do. So I still show at the Grandin Gallery, show in a gallery in Texas called Jack Mayer Gallery, but mostly I'm painting big public commissions and mosaic or oils, and that's what I've been doing for the last 9 years, basically.
Wow.
It's great. It's great. I mean, I've done about 200 figures for this church, plus animal scenes. We put Carmel Mission, Django in Vietnam, the Bay of New York with Statue of Liberty. I've done animals, children, Indians. I mean, it's so creative. People think like, commission work is the killer of your soul. Absolutely not. Why? And probably we can close with this.
Yeah.
And this taught me this. When you give yourself rules or limitations, okay, so you got a commission, had to be this, and this, and that. The most rules or limitations, I don't know what you can, criteria you can put to it, is you can be the most creative. The most creative. Because like, how do I go around this? How can I express something with so many, say, limitations? Yeah. When you say to yourself, well, do whatever you want, just be creative.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Is when you are not creative at all. And so give me rules, give me limitations, and then boom, try to create something from that. I think.
Right.
So that's.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been talking about maybe starting a school in Seattle with a guy who might want to fund it, and the ideas are so broadly varied, and no progress has really been made. And I think the reason is because we haven't just put the parameters on and said, let's narrow this down to this, and then we can start really pushing forward. So I think that applies in a lot of different ways, that parameters can really help focus your efforts in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I finally set up a website about 6 months ago. So, trying to catch up.
You're catching up.
With times.
You're getting into the 20th century, 21st century.
Slowly. I don't want to be a zombie that doesn't understand what the world's around him, because it's not the point.
So is it RamiroSanchez.com?
What is it? It's Ramiro Sanchez Art.
RamiroSanchezArt.com.
Not .com, .art.
Okay.
Or RamiroSanchez.art, something like that. Anyhow.
Okay,
Ramiro
look
Sanchez.
all of those up. Google Ramiro Sanchez. Yeah, all right. Well, we'll wrap that up. You got to go get your kids, and thank you so much. It was super fun.
Yeah, it was great.
Seeing you again. It's been a long time. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
And if anybody falls asleep, wake up now.
All right.
Thank you, Ryan.
All right. Yes. See ya.
Thank you, mate.
Yeah.